All right, so in this video, we're going to go through how to pass the graduate scheme interview stage. So if you've got an interview coming up, then this video is going to be very, very important for you to watch. Now, before we get started, if you're new to the channel, my name is The Grad Guy. I help average graduates get onto high-paying grad schemes. You can see some screenshots here. I received not one, but multiple graduate scheme offers back. So I do know a little bit about getting onto high-paying graduate schemes. If you're an average guy like myself, you didn't get high grades in uni, you're not the best out of the gate. It took me 4 years to get onto a graduate scheme because I was doing all sorts of random things, just lots of trial and error. But yeah, if you're like me, then I highly recommend that you subscribe to the channel. And if you need help with getting onto a grad scheme, then you can check out my premium course, which is linked in the description below. I walk you through everything that I did to get onto a high paying graduate scheme so you can follow along and use some of the tips and stuff, strategies that I share in there to help you get onto a high paying grad scheme yourself as well. So, in this lesson, we will be covering the following. We're going to talk about the types of interviews that you could sit as part of your graduate hiring process. We're going to talk about the skills that they want to see. So, these are the skills that you need to show in your interview. We're going to talk about winning strategies that you can use as part of your interview strategy and before your interview strategy, before your interview. And one thing I want you to keep in mind is that I'm not just going to give you a bunch of hacks and tips in this video because the thing with an interview is it takes months and years to build up the skills that you need to show on an interview, right? And that's things like being articulate, being concise, being able to communicate, using verbal nods and things like that. I can tell you those things in this video, but you're not just gonna get them in one day, or you're not just gonna get them by watching one video. So I will highlight them here for you, but the majority of winning at an interview is it's all about practice, right? If you don't practice, whether that's practicing with family and friends or someone, another colleague of yours or a friend of yours, or practicing with a career counselor or something like that, or even myself, you can, if you want to practice with me, you can do so. Check out like I said, my course, or you can check out the email in the description below. You can let me know if it is something you want to do. But you can also practice by going through lots of different interviews, right? So you can use like graduate scheme interviews as a practice for something that you actually want to get onto. So if you're applying to 6 different graduate schemes, use 5 of them to practice. And then when you do the sixth one, which is the one that you want to get onto, you will have practiced real time interviews up until then. So practice makes perfect, and that is the only way to learn and get better at this. So, just keep that in mind. And the other thing to keep in mind is that researching a specific interview will also give you the best opportunity to prepare. Every interview is going to be different. Every interview will have a different marking scheme. Every graduate scheme will have a different sort of thing that they're looking for. So even though you can practice with the majority of schemes will be looking for sort of like the similar thing, they'll be asking you similar questions. And again, I talk about this in this video as well. I'll cover it later on. But you will have a bank of questions which will always be asked in every single interview, right? So you can prepare for those. But there might be little nuances which you can't specifically prepare for until you actually sit the interview. So there you've just got to use your intuition, and that is, again, like I said, your soft skills such as how you articulate yourself, how concise you are. Do you give off that good person feeling, right? That's kind of what they're looking for as well in the interview. It's not just about what you know, but it's also about what you show. So just keep that in mind. Here is a chart just to give you an idea of the difficulty and the importance of each stage in the graduate hiring process. So you can see that the application form is pretty much easy as chips, easy peasy, lemon squeezy compared to the rest of the stuff. Obviously, there might be some questions in the application form, but it's not going to be something that's going to cause you a lot of problems, or hopefully it shouldn't. It's just a time thing. It just takes long, and it's just kind of pointless in some regards. But that's not going to be that hard. But then you have the online tests, which are quite a jump up from the application form. Obviously, here you're not really using much of your brain. Here you are using pretty much 100% of your brain, so that can be quite hard. And then we have the interview stage, which you can see here in red. And you can see that is a lot harder than the online tests, in my opinion, because well, with the online tests you can practice loads and you can pass it. You could even fluke it in some instances and pass it, but the interview stage you can't really fluke it. You really do have to be on the ball. And the interview stage and the assessment center, which is, in my opinion, the hardest part of the whole process, this that I've written here, 1 and 2, these two stages are what I like to call the make or break stages. So a lot of people do get past the online tests. You might specifically just find it hard yourself, or you may not find it hard, but a lot of people do generally get past the online test after practice and going through a few of them. But the interview stage is a make or break situation, and the assessment center is definitely a make or break situation where a lot of people fall off, and that's really where they are able to extract the best of the best candidates. So it's um, very much in your interest to be switched on for the interview, do as much research as you can, and also for the assessment center as well. The technical interview is usually right at the end, and this isn't as hard because if you're applying to something that's technical, you probably either have a degree in that technical field, or you already have enough knowledge in that technical field that it shouldn't be much of a problem. And they don't really expect you to be an expert in that field anyway. So that's not going to be as hard. But like I said, these two, especially the interview stage and the assessment center, you've got to be switched on with this. So which is what we're going to try and help you with. At least, well, the assessment center is in a different video. I've already done one for that. But the interview stage is what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so types of interviews. Let's get out the what are we looking for? We're getting the laser pointer. Okay, types of interviews. Here we go. So there's a couple of types of interviews that you can go through. You think of an interview and you'd think it's just self-explanatory, but they always have to make it harder than it actually is. So here we go. These are the types of interviews that you could be sitting. Firstly, you've got the pre-recorded interview. This is important. Listen to this. So pre-recorded interviews are they're usually sent to you to complete straight away, right? They're automated and usually at the start of the process. So once you've put your application form in, you might be put through a pre-recorded interview, or usually it's like when you've done your online test, and if you pass that, then you go into a pre-recorded interview. Essentially, what this is basically a number of questions, and most of the times, it's a video. There'll be videos. They'll be asking you the questions through those recorded videos. So they'll usually have some guy or a girl who's clearly an actor, and they'll be asking you, what would you do in this situation? This has happened. They'll give you a scenario. What would you do? How would you go about this? And they might ask you some motivational questions as well. Why you're applying to the role? What makes you a good fit for the role? Those kind of things. The biggest thing to keep in mind with a pre-recorded interview is the timing element. They will give you a limited time in which you need to say what it is you need to say. Two things to note. Make sure that you keep your answer within that time. And the other thing is make sure that your recording gear is intact. Make sure that your camera is working. Make sure that your audio device is recording the audio. Sometimes they give you a chance to test that. Well, actually, not sometimes, sorry. Every single pre-recorded interview you will do, they will give you a chance to make sure that your technology is working, but just double check it, triple check it, because I've had instances in the past where in the test environment it's worked, and then when I've actually given the answer, nothing's been recorded. It's like, what the hell just happened there? Sometimes they allow you to re-record, but in most cases they will only give you like a minute or two to speak what you need to speak, and you can't re-record that section. So very, very important to check everything is working and make sure that you keep within that time limit. Okay. Then we have the live interviews, and this is usually conducted in its own separate stage, and this will be over Zoom or MS Teams, Google Hangouts, wherever they choose, and that's going to be like a video call, and there'll be someone on the other end who's going to be asking you live questions. You can actually see them, and I tend to prefer these better because, well, you don't have a time box, and if you do make a mistake, you can just tell them, sorry, can I just start again? Or if you can't understand the question, you can ask them again. So I feel as though it's better, but yeah, you could be in a pre-recorded and then a live interview as well, and then you could have a third one, which is an in-person interview. And this can be done at the assessment center, or this can just be a separate stage as well. So this is an in-person interview. Don't really need to explain that. You're physically there with another person. And yeah, this can obviously be the most nerve-wracking because you're there in person and they can see your every move. But just again, like I said, need to make sure that you show that you can articulate yourself, you're confident, and use your verbal cues and make sure that you're listening attentively as well. You can have a technical interview as well, like I mentioned a few slides ago. So this will usually be near the end of the process. Technical interviews will be very niche and specific to the graduate scheme that you're applying to. So I can only talk a limited amount about that because that you'll be given information on that when you get to that stage. And then you can have an informal interview as well. And this is where it's just a nice informal chat, and they usually what they want to gauge from here is what kind of person you are, what kind of vibe you're giving off, just to see if you're a good culture fit. And they could ask you about your future aspirations, just to see if you're serious, or what kind of goals that you have in your mind. Remember that an informal interview and a technical interview, well, an informal interview is still an interview, so make sure that you conduct yourself properly and don't just let your guard down, and just keep that in mind. Now, you could get all three types of interview in your hiring process. So, or these, I guess you could call these as interview subjects. They're not really type of interviews. So it could be the subject could be technical or it could be informal. But these are like the actual types of interviews. The formats. I guess I should have called it formats. You can get all of these three formats within your graduate hiring process. So just keep that in mind. You might have a pre-recorded interview, then you might have a live interview, and then you might actually have an in-person interview as well. So yeah, can be quite tough, but like I said, just got to persevere, just got to get through it. Okay, here are the skills that they want to see in your interview. So when you're giving the interview, these are the skills that you want to show. And sometimes you got to understand that they want to see you show those skills as well, not just talk about those skills, right? So if you're talking in the, oh yeah, I'm very confident, and then you're not actually acting confident, well, you've got to talk the talk and you've got to walk the walk as well. So just keep that in mind. If you walk the walk and you don't talk the talk, sometimes you can actually get away with it. So what I mean by that is, even if you give subpar answers, if you act confident and you articulate yourself properly, you might actually get past the interview stage just because of the way you conduct yourself, right? So very, very important to keep that in mind. These skills that I'm going to talk about, you need to show these skills and make sure that the interviewer can see these skills. So first thing, clear, concise communication. Very, very important. Try to cut down any ums and ahs. I'm saying this because I do it as well. I remember at the start of the video I said this video and my whole ethos with this YouTube channel is to help average students, average graduates, right? I am an average graduate, almost below average, right? And I come from an ethnic minority as well. I come from an Asian background where English is 50% of the language I speak. It's not the 100% of the language I speak. I also speak a different language, right? So that generally tends to it doesn't help, right? Let's just put it that way. And we can find ourselves, well, I say I can find myself going on a tangent or not being concise enough. So this is one thing I do want to mention. If you're an average student, you might get a mental block. These are all normal things, that's fine, but practice, practice, practice so that you can become clear and concise in your communication. If the other guy can't understand what you're saying, they won't be able to mark you down. So keep that in mind. Mark you down as in they can't mark down your attributes. Okay, presentation skills. When you're given an interview, it is kind of like presenting. What are you presenting? Well, you're presenting yourself and you're presenting the skills and the answers to the questions that are being asked. So work on your presentation skills. Make sure, again, and it goes hand in hand with, concise communication. It's very similar. Comprehension skills, very important. When they ask you the questions, they want to see how well you understood the question. A lot of the times, I remember in my experience, a lot of the times the questions that they asked, I just completely forget them because I was so worried about how I'm going to answer them. I would be like, so yeah, sorry, could you repeat the question? Because I just completely forgot. So again, happens. Don't worry about it. But yeah, you need to make sure that you listen attentively. What is the question that they're asking? What is it that they want to hear from you? Then create a game plan, then execute and say what you need to say. But listen carefully to what they're actually asking. You can ask them for clarification, not in the pre-recorded interview because it's just written there, but on a live or in-person interview, you can ask them, sorry, I didn't quite understand that, or didn't quite catch that. So just keep that in mind. Just another thing to remember as well, when I mean here clear, concise communication, doesn't mean that you need to have the best accent in the world. I've got a Northern England accent, which a lot of people find very, very annoying. That doesn't matter. I'm speaking what I'm speaking to now is people that are international students. Maybe English is not your first language. For me, it is, but it's not my whole language. Like I speak other languages as well. If English is not your first language, meaning you speak a different language on your day-to-day activities, and English is like a secondary language, then you may have some problems, or you may have just an uphill battle when it comes to being clear, concise. So make sure, again, like I said, practice. And if you do want to practice with me, you can happily send me an email from the link in the description below. Let me know, and we can go through that. But yeah, you do need to be clear and concise as much as you can. And a great way to do this is, I think, if you keep your sentences short and to the point, that's the best way to be clear, concise. Okay, time management skills. So this is more in the pre-recorded interview. They do want to see if you can stay in the time box. If they give you 2 minutes to, talk about something, then stay within that 2 minutes. It's a little bit. It's very hard to do this, by the way. It seems easy, right? Okay, I need to talk for 2 minutes, but it's actually quite hard. And the reason for that is because you may end up being too short or being too long. So it's sometimes hard to time yourself. And if you've got lots to say and you're speeding through your answer, again, you're not fulfilling this first skill here, which is being clear, concise, because you're talking so fast, right? So again, practice makes perfect. The more you practice, the more you can time yourself with your phone, and then you can see how long it takes. Then you can create a smaller version of that answer or a longer version of the answer to suit different time boxes that are given to you from different graduate schemes. Because remember, every graduate scheme is different. Network Rail graduate scheme might give you 2 minutes to speak, but I don't know, Google graduate scheme might give you 5 minutes to speak. So every graduate scheme is different, and you don't want to be too long or too short in the answer. Okay, here are some winning strategies. Practice your delivery. I've said this about 10 times now, so you have to practice. There is no other way to win at the interview. You have to practice. If you have no idea how to practice, find a way to practice. That is the only way to get better. Rehearse the 3 whys. Now, here's a very interesting one. So, the 3 whys are what I like to call the staple questions that you'll always get asked. If you don't get asked these questions, I would be surprised. So, it might be in the pre-recorded interview or it might be in a live interview. It's basically 3 whys. Why should we hire you? Why do you want to work for the company? And why do you want to work in this role? So essentially, why you, why us, why this role? And these 3 questions are really important. You need to have an answer for them. They're going to ask you why you want to work for the company. What's your answer, right? You have to research the company, look at their mottos, look at the things that they're doing. What do you resonate with? And then mention that. Why you? Why you? You need to mention at least 3 things that you're bringing to the table, 3 values that you can bring to the company. And then why this role? Why is it specifically this role that you've chosen? Again, find 3 things for that specific role, and these are going to change from company to company and graduate scheme to graduate scheme. So you can see why these graduate scheme hiring processes are so annoying, because you have to tailor to some point for each graduate scheme, because it's different. So yeah, but you must rehearse something for at least why this company and why you. Why you is going to be the same. Obviously, you're the same person. You might have to tailor it a little bit depending on the company. But why the company and why the role, you've got to come up with a decent explanation as to why you want to apply to that company or why that role. Research the company to try and find the questions. That's the best way to prepare for the interview, is obviously to practice and practice the questions. You won't always know the questions, and that's fine. They're designed for you not to know. But there are ways to find what questions are asked in the interview and what have been asked before. I do keep that as a special lesson in my course, just because I want to help really the serious people find out those ways. But you could probably do research and find out those questions. I'm sure there's lots of resources out there. Have a bank of answers ready to common questions which you can morph for the interview. So again, there'll be a bunch of questions which will be asked in all sorts of like any interview that you go into. There will be a set of questions that are always asked, or there's like a variation of that question asked. So have that written down somewhere. I get my Graduate X students to create a Notion document, and in there just have your answers to those, and then you can morph those into different scenarios when you get asked those similar questions to those. Use the STAR method. So I'm not going to go in depth into this because you've probably seen videos on this before, but if you're new to this, it's basically STAR method is a way of answering questions in a nice, concise manner. So you've got S, which stands for situation. Talk a little bit about the situation. T is the task that you undertook. A is action. What action did you take? And this is like the longest part of the answer that you give. What did you do? And R is result. What was the result of all the stuff that you did? So if you use that, I highly recommend that for any answer that you give, use the STAR method. You have to use a STAR method. It is the best way to lay out your answers. And have a good setup. Use a laptop and a headset for better audio. You can see I'm using a headset here. Definitely a good call to use that, and use a laptop. Try not to use your phone. Sometimes you can get connection problems. Sometimes you can't see the other person or the question properly on your phone. Always use a laptop and use a headset for better audio. Obviously use a camera as well. The laptop has a camera on it, but it's not very good. So make sure that if you can, invest in a webcam so that you can present yourself properly. And that is everything. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want more in-depth strategies and tools to boost your chances of getting onto a higher paying graduate scheme, please do check out the course in the description below. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And if you do want to practice a one-on-one interview, I do offer that service, and that is going to be in the description below. You can email me and we can set that up for you and let you know how much it is and stuff, and then you can take it from there. With that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.